Hey, what's going on guys? My name is John Shea and today I wanted to walk you through my man cave that I have here in my garage. Basically what I have is more or less arcades. I have racing computers that I've linked together, tons of retro game systems, and a whole lot more. It's a little bit messy in here right now because we recently had a flood in our basement, so I have some things still in here that we're currently moving back into the basement now that we handled the flood situation. But I really wanted to show the whole space because we've actually utilized this for many events. Doing things like tournaments, we've had LAN parties here, all sorts of different events. We even have hosted baby showers in this garage. So let's kind of go through everything. This is kind of something that's really interesting. You probably wouldn't even see a whole lot. The garage itself is already massive, and when I bought this property, the owner had actually built onto the garage. So this was actually the wall where everything ended, and these are exterior windows. And at one point, one of the past owners had decided he wanted to store more cars, so he added on this whole other garage bay. And one of the most recent owners decided to finish this into a room. So when I bought the property, there was actually a garage door here, and I was like, what am I gonna do with this room? And I had a vision. You know, it started off really small. It was literally an IKEA table with a CRT and a few of my old school consoles that I grew up with, like Nintendo 64. And eventually this is what it's turned into. It's kind of just been building upon building upon building. So let's kind of start with this side of the room. This is kind of where I work. I work from home, so I've got a 38-inch monitor here with a 27-inch monitor. Basically have this set up as a really nice workstation. I also do some filming here because I do a lot of product reviews as one of my side hustles, so I have a camera mount here for that. I custom build my own PCs as well. I also decided to make this nice wall here, and I forgot to turn on one of my lights. Wanted to give you guys the full effect. I have this cool like 3D light up here, kind of nice when you enter the room. But I actually maintain some of my original guides. So this is my Chrono Trigger guide that I never got rid of. I had to repurchase some of these, like the Ocarina of Time guide. This one I found, believe it or not, for $5 in a local store. I never got rid of my Final Fantasy III guide, so this is the original one, all, you know, torn and beat up. Moving on, of course we had to have a mini fridge in here to have quick access to drinks. I have this cool little Nintendo light, and then this actually normally would display little pixel graphics, and I would sometimes have it, you know, show like little Mario characters or Final Fantasy characters from any old school like Super Nintendo or NES games. Of course, we have the NES controller light, looks really cool, and then just some sort of extra accent lighting, all the Mario Brother original NES games. Moving into the rest of the room, we have a massage chair. This is a real hit when people come over and we're hanging out in the room. People love to sit in the massage chair. I also did get this custom Final Fantasy VI light. I had this made by somebody on Etsy, and they custom designed this. I also have a controller here that we can use to control the RGB in the room. So I have 4 of these square, or rather circle lights, and I can turn on RGB functions with these. So here's kind of like a red, and it will rotate through different colors as needed. So if I just hit this, so it kind of makes for like really cool accent lighting in here. I'll go ahead and turn the regular lights on just so we can see better as I go through the room. Getting to the good stuff. So I found this IKEA cabinet, and this was something that, you know, normally most people probably wouldn't want this, but the guy was selling it real cheap. And I said to myself, you know, this is something I could totally use for like a nice retro setup. And of course I was right. I went out and got some really nice like Nintendo signs. We have our Switch actually tucked away back there. I've got my wife's back there now, a nice Nintendo sign. Of course we've got the Super Nintendo sign, and this essentially has all of the games that I grew up playing as a kid. This one even still has the Blockbuster labels on it telling me to return it, which I thought was pretty funny. I was able to really deck out. Super Nintendo is one of my favorite of all time, and of course Final Fantasy. This is the Game Boy Advance version of Final Fantasy VI, also known as Final Fantasy III in the US. We have Final Fantasy Tactics here on Game Boy Advance. I never really had a Game Boy Advance, but I decided to pick one up and get just a couple games I figured I would really enjoy. Moving into the Nintendo 64, I was able to get all these labels, and I've pretty much got quite the collection here. Most of these I played as a kid, but there were a few that I picked up again in bundle deals I hadn't played too much. Didn't really get a lot of box art, but I was able to get all these really nice labels and kind of stack them with these custom, holders that I was able to find on Etsy. Now, going through the rest of the setup, we have a 32-inch Sony Trinitron, right? This is kind of like the king of CRTs, unless you're going with one of those like crazy tiny ones that is like really top of the line. This would have been as close to what I had growing up as a kid. So, of course, I have all the original consoles here. I did end up getting a Bluetooth controller for the Super Nintendo because it just made things a little easier. We also have these switcher boxes. So this is basically using component video here in the top for the Super Nintendo, Sega, and PS2. And then I printed out all these labels for all the other consoles. So pretty much I can instantly switch between any of the consoles without going back and unplugging wires or doing anything crazy like that. This I need to kind of work on a little bit better setup, but we also have the PS4 up here. I have an Xbox One that's elsewhere at the moment. There's a PS2 down here, the Nintendo 64, a GameCube. This is actually my very original Nintendo. I never got rid of it. At one point I almost threw it away, but I ended up getting this repaired, and I've done some cleaning work on it, and it works perfectly. I had someone do some repair work on it. And yeah, let's keep moving on. So we got some Sega games. These were some of my favorites, like Toe Jam and Earl, Pigskin Football, and I got a few other games back there like Skitchin, X-Men. We got all the Sonic games here. I even found a reasonably conditioned Sonic & Knuckles, which was one of the only cardboard boxes. Moving into the PlayStation games, this was definitely one of my favorite consoles growing up. We have like Diablo 1, Metal Gear Solid, Final Fantasy VII, Tactics, Silent Hill, Dino Crisis, just some really popular games. Moving on with the full setup, another thing that I did, and as you can see here, is I actually installed this little mini PC up here. And what this does is basically it runs an arcade front end, and it's normally actually has emulators on it, but I don't use it to play the emulators. So this has all of the games that I physically have in the room, and it runs on what's called I forget the exact terminology, but essentially it like auto loads little trailers and previews of the game. But you can see the date and the time, and then it just kind of goes through all the different systems, shows all the games, and this is only showing games that I physically have in the room. So if someone were to come over and they were like, hey, what do you want to play? I could just literally boot this up, and then it kind of gives them previews of all the different games that we could choose and pick from. As you can see, I was barely able to fit the CRT. I had a 27-inch here before, and I was really nervous when I went to get this one, if it was going to fit. The biggest problem I had with this one was the weight of the actual wood. It was so heavy, I literally had to put bricks underneath on both sides. So these are bricks that were actually out in my wife's garden, and I took them and put them in here so we could support the weight of the CRT, but so far so good. Another thing that really has been helpful with this cabinet was obviously the wire management. There's a ton of wires, a lot of power happening all behind this. You can see just this one power switch alone is pretty nuts back here, and then we got wires running all through the back. Now, moving on into the room, we also have, of course, and this is the thing that gets the compliments the most out of everything in this room, is this Final Fantasy VI carpet. I had this custom made on Etsy. On the topic of speaker wire, what I did is I installed this 7.1 channel Sony receiver. So this is essentially set up with these two large bookshelf speakers in the back. I got these mounts, and then I ran and hid all the speaker wire running through. I then installed these tower speakers, and these are actually Dolby Atmos up-firing speakers. So if you're playing any movies, like let's say I watch like an action movie like Jason Bourne or something like that, you're gonna hear all the sounds, all the effects, Star Wars, you'll feel and hear the TIE fighters like flying over you. What I didn't realize was that setting up an awesome sound system like this and matching it to something like playing Final Fantasy on the CRT with the original Super Nintendo, it really enhances the sound. And I also have this little wireless receiver. It's actually hanging out back here. You can see it hanging there with the red light. It connects wirelessly over to this little box over here. And this actually allows all 5 of these movie theater seats. In fact, I think it only does it with 4 of them. It's like this first row of 4. These all vibrate, and it acts as like a second subwoofer output. So if you're watching movies or playing games, these are absolutely awesome. They also light up. You can turn on like little lights here that come through in the bottom. So when the lights are off in the room, you get all of them on. It just looks really slick. You also have this little mounting piece here. You can add on like either a cell phone mount or these little trays. People could put popcorn, or in this case, we've got all our remotes. And then of course, these are all automatic, so you can recline them or adjust the headrest as well. So very, very slick. These were probably one of the best purchases I got for the room because it just makes for tons of seating and everybody can sit down and hang out. We have Atari Star Wars. This is unmodded, completely original. I may mod this in the future, but for now we're leaving it stock. We also have Terminator 2 over here, of course, Arcade 1UP. These are really nice because, as you can see, I was able to fit them very conveniently here. We have our original Super Scope. I may actually wall mount this. When I purchased this, someone had the little tack pieces, so I may end up wall mounting this somewhere, and I'll just have to sort of figure that out. I put this nice curtain here as well, and this leads right out into our yard. So this is pretty much right to our backyard. I even added a bug screen, so in the summer when we have parties, we'll actually open this door, and that way the bugs can't get in and people can kind of free roam into the arcade. Now, I'm sure this is one you have lots of curiosity about. I ended up actually getting this custom Back to the Future arcade. This is from a company called The Arcade Guys. When I purchased it, I really didn't know a whole lot about what was possible with these, so I kind of bought it with a lot of the base features. So some of the things I've done to this have been massive upgrades. The first was the speakers. So I upgraded these to much better speakers. These are essentially like 6.5-inch car speakers. I also upgraded the amplifier, which is controlled through the bottom here. It basically allows me to control like bass and treble and all sorts of other settings. We then of course have 4 joysticks going across. I'm going to be replacing these with Sanwa sticks, which I actually have in a box down here. And the other big upgrade I did with this is I decided to do a custom Betocera build. It's pretty wild back here. There's a lot going on, but I have a custom little mini PC here that's kind of a gaming oriented mini PC, and you can see I've got this huge USB dock basically hooked up. There's a large 6 terabyte hard drive that I have hooked up to this with a custom Betocera build with over like 50,000, maybe 60,000 games. This literally has every system you could imagine. You can see here Super Nintendo, Virtual Boy, N64, Game Boy, Nintendo GameCube, and the list just keeps going. It literally has pretty much everything from like early DOS games and Atari all the way up through PlayStation 3 games. So moving into the garage, we have a lot more going on in here. Usually when we have parties, I'll kind of leave the door open. You can see I've got a game zone sign up here. For some reason this light stopped working, but ultimately I've got a few custom upgrades I did on these cabinets. We have the Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition. This is an original cabinet. I actually got this for free. For some reason the guy was just giving it away. So I had someone upgrade all of the buttons in this to LED buttons. Yeah, basically I was able to put a custom mini PC in this. So again, very similar to the one out there, the Back to the Future cabinet. Have this one here, and then we just have a little desktop sound system. He actually added a bar back here. And then we have another mini PC in this computer, or rather in this arcade. And then I also added a subwoofer in here, and I mounted a sound bar on the back side of this board. So this middle one is basically got some custom stuff set up as well. I'll kind of go through this. I actually set up a custom list of Capcom games that just runs off of I think it's CoinOps. So this is basically a CoinOps build, pretty basic, but I do also have TechnoParrot loaded on this with a few games like Tekken that you can play networked between the two computers. They basically have hardline network wires running to them. We also have this custom Core R build. This is a Core R front end running specifically a Mortal Kombat collection. This one's pretty cool because it plays a really awesome intro, and then you can go through and it literally has like every Mortal Kombat game on every system, all the way up through I think like Mortal Kombat 10, and it actually, or Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate, and it actually runs this really well because it's not a super high resolution. So very, very cool. Again, also replaced all the buttons with LEDs. This is the Killer Instinct cabinet. I had this, bought this actually on a really good deal. I kind of bartered with the guy, and this is completely stock. I wanted to leave it the way it was because I really like the joysticks and the LED lights, and this one has online leaderboards and some other features these older ones did not have. Moving on, we also have a stock NFL Blitz. I did play this a little bit on the Nintendo 64 growing up, but I wasn't super big on it. I just, of course, as many of you know, if you're in the Arcade 1UP groups, they had a big deal on these at Ollie's, so it was like 300 bucks, and I was able to go pick this up very cheap. And this one's also a good cabinet if you decide to modify it. We then also have the Simpsons one up. Somehow I was able to find someone selling this for $80, which was like ridiculously low for this. It was very dusty, needed a lot of cleanup, but I was able to install and mod it, a custom front end using this Dig platform, following some tutorials online. So it essentially runs the original Simpsons arcade, but it doesn't, you know, it also has the ability, I could run like Super Nintendo games or other 4-player arcade games on this. So I'm probably gonna do some more modifying with this, but ultimately, I'm pretty happy with the way this is set up so far, since you can still play all the original stuff. Now, this is kind of a gym area that the last owner was using. I decided to clean it up. We've got like a rower in here, bench, I've got a dip bar, some weights, and then I sort of store everything in these shelves. I also decided to add this sound system over here. So this is actually a 4-channel sound system, and I have a 55-inch TV mounted up here in the wall. This actually has a PlayStation 5 mounted behind, and I have my VR over here. So if I wanted to do like VR boxing, I could actually stand in the middle of this gym area, and it's pretty much perfect for it because I have all this space. So I've actually been doing VR workouts out here on the PS5. And I can also do racing games. So as you can see, we have 4 computers here that all have either G920s or G923s. I was sent this stand for free, so one of them has a stand, but ultimately I'm gonna be upgrading all of these to these custom cabinets that all have the Daytona USA artwork on them, and I'll be getting rid of the tables, and the monitors will be mounted inside of cabinets, and I'll have racing chairs all set up for pretty much arcade racing. I've spent hours and hours and hours working with all these custom built computers that I have to set up games like Mario Kart and get them working networked across all of them. So these are all hardwired, networked, and everything is working pretty much beautifully. It just takes a lot of time to configure the controls and all the settings and the graphics and figuring out all the little kinks and tweaks in the networking. But once you get it going, this actually works really well. Moving on, we do also have a cabinet here that I stored, and again, it's a little messy in here like I said at the beginning, but I have this cabinet full of like old retro stuff. We've got like old CDs that I never got rid of, as well as all of these old school like PC games, like here's Half-Life or Quake 3 Arena, Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3, tons of old school retro stuff. Here's like World of Warcraft, like the second expansion, the original World of Warcraft. I even have, for any real old school MMO gamers, this is like my original EverQuest strategy, or like the manual that it came with, and some of the like pamphlets, the map. Now, moving on with the final kind of part of the garage here is we added this projector up here. And what I usually do is I'll pull all the cars out. Right now, obviously we have all this stuff here, but I'll pull the cars out. We'll put the projector kind of right over here in the middle, and then we'll set up a bunch of chairs right here, and we can actually do tournaments in here. So for one of the parties that we did, we had a Mortal Kombat tournament, and we basically set up a laptop over there kind of on a shelf, and I was able to run the tournament, and we had like people going and hanging out playing Mortal Kombat. I had it set up on 2 of these arcades, on this TV, and on my computer in there, and people were able to practice before the tournament, and it was like just a really fun day. People had a lot of fun, and it worked out beautifully. So yeah, that's pretty much my space. I thought I would also just share to kind of sum things up. We have also done LAN parties here. The entire upstairs of this garage is actually sort of like an in-law apartment, and it's completely open all the way from this side of the wall all the way down. So usually we'll do LAN parties where we'll have up to 15 people up there. I can't show it in this video because I have a friend of mine actually staying there, but as you can see, it's a huge, huge space. So that's another thing that we'll do. We've even done like dual parties where we'll have the LAN going upstairs, and then people will come down here and play arcade games, take a break, have food. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed the review here. I'll kind of flip this back, kind of going through the whole space, just walking you through everything. Of course, you can see I've spent a lot of time on this, but yeah, if you guys are in the New England area and you decide that maybe you're looking for a space like this to rent out, that's something, again, that I've been recently kind of thinking about doing for people. If you're looking for a space to host for, maybe it's a regular event, I've thrown like baby showers here where people came and hang out. We've also, you know, again, done the LAN parties here. We've had arcade events. We did a retro game night. We've done tournaments like the Mortal Kombat tournament. I'm currently hosting the space where you can come rent it out for like 4 hours on Peerspace. Bring all your buddies, anyone you want, whether or not it's just a regular event or a birthday party, whatever it is, you can come and actually rent this whole place for yourself. hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and again, thanks for taking the time to check out my retro cave, arcade, whatever you want to call it, my massive garage man cave. Thanks, and we'll talk to you later.